Week 8 of the NAI football schedule is now in the books. That means we are 2/3 of the way through the 2025 season. It is amazing as to how quickly this has gone by. There are folks in the chat already. I want to give a shout out to Robert, to Leo, to Tool Envy, and all of the rest of you all who are watching tonight. We want to get right into it because there's a lot to talk about. 45 games on the docket, including a Thursday night game featuring the number one team in the country. We need to talk about who won in our Bet the Barn segment this week because we do have someone who got all four of them right. Man, and I can tell you really quickly, it was not me. And on top of that, we got to talk about our top 5 performances, and there's not enough room for all the performances this weekend to make it into the top 5, I will tell you right now. But before we go any further, let's talk about one of the big games of the weekend, and I will bring in the voice of the Morningside Mustangs as Dave Sellen joins the chat as well. And Dave says he's here licking the wounds. Daniel, do you feel that way, Northwestern, with a 14-13 victory?
In a sense, I do, but also in a sense, like Coach Ryan kind of said, he was proud of the way the guys fought, through a tough game, very physical game. So from that standpoint, I'm sure there are some wounds to be licked, but there's a lot of positives to take from Saturday, but also certainly the obvious negatives as well.
Okay, proper introduction. Daniel Versteeg, who is the voice of the Mustangs, has been how many years now?
Oh, gosh, I started in 2018, so this will be my eighth football season, I think, with them. So,
all right. Year 8. That's what I had in my mind, but I should have just gone with it and sounded like I had researched a little bit better. Daniel, we normally talk about winners first here with the games that we do, but, this is not without precedent to talk to the broadcaster of the team that happened to lose this weekend. So let's go ahead and talk about Morningside just a little bit. Morningside now 5-2 on the season, lost the opener against Benedictine, tough game there, and then rattled off 5 straight. And then, of course, the 14-13 loss to Northwestern. Looking at it, 5-1, taking on a Northwestern team that was 3-3 coming in and has looked a little sketchy over the course of the season, but it still is a rivalry game. So going into that, did it still feel like that big rivalry game?
Yeah, it certainly did. It was very weird to be talking about Northwestern as a team that was trying to get back above 500, especially in their 7th game of the season, But yeah, we also mentioned in our broadcast that it's hard to talk about Morningside Northwestern under any other light than it being a big rivalry game that we've obviously seen under the biggest stage of NAIA football in the semifinals, and each team having success in the championship game. So yeah, it was a home game for Northwestern. They're obviously coming off that big win last weekend, considering everything that happened leading up to that, where they basically had to string together an offensive line with duct tape and put it on the field, and they still won 28-0. It was their first time back from all that. Their duct tape was still holding strong on the offensive line this week. There was a lot going into it, and Morningside had been successful up until that point, and there was certainly a lot of energy at Corver Field DeValois Stadium yesterday.
All right, Zach Chevalier, not his best performance, and we can state that, and it's objective. Even though he's 22 of 41 passing, a little above 50% there, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. I don't recall, if ever, he's thrown 3 picks in a collegiate game wearing a Morningside uniform.
Right. Yeah, it's if it happened, it was probably when he was first thrown into that starting role at the end of 2023. Maybe that Dort game he struggled in late in the season. But, very, very uncharacteristic for him. I think we mentioned a few times throughout our broadcast that he was kind of hovering around the 50% rate, and on the season he completes 70% of his passes. The interceptions had been a bit of an issue. Benedictine game, Briarcliff, he turned the ball over a little bit. I think he threw one against Midland as well, but he had really cleaned it up the last few weeks of the season. But as Coach Ryan told us in our pregame, he's got so much respect for Northwestern's defense. There really were not very many passing windows open for Zach to throw the ball into. And those windows that are normally open for him against, a Hastings or a Dakota Wesleyan or someone like that, those windows shrunk that much faster against a very good Northwestern defense. So passes he normally makes and can tighten the window into, there just wasn't that opportunity yesterday. And unfortunately it shows. I don't think you can blame him on all 3 interceptions, but certainly he has some blames on some passes that he had a chance to complete that were off the mark, and a couple of those interceptions were probably very ill-advised throws.
You talk about the windows closing, and I think that's a good segue into my next question. I first want to welcome Leo in and Matt in, and Tool Envy says, you can't underestimate the fight in a wounded rival, and I think that probably played a big factor in it. Before I ask the question, though, I will say for those who are just joining, we're talking to Daniel Versteeg from Morningside, voice of the Mustangs. We're going to get to Northwestern in a moment. I don't want to take away from what that defense did and has done this season. But in light of that, windows closing there, I mean, you've got a stellar receiver like Drew Sellen, who was held without a touchdown reception for the first time this season, 7 games in. You have to go back to the playoffs last season against Mid-America Nazarene in challenging circumstances. An 8-game streak with at least 1 touchdown was snapped. So talk about Sellen's play and what they did to bottle him up.
Yeah, well, I think if you're going into a Morningside game plan and you don't know where number 9 is, you're going to have a really long afternoon. So Northwestern stuck one of their best corners on him. Jordan Carter got that assignment a number of times. We obviously saw what he did with the pick 6. They stuck a safety on him a couple of times as well, and it was just really tough to get him the football outside of really quick routes. I know Morningside hit him a couple of times on some quick out routes. Tried to get the screen game going with him and Kyle Sisler on opposite sides of the field. But, as you get further along into the season and Drew's been putting up some outstanding numbers, you're going to be asked to prove it against some of the best defenses in the country, and Northwestern certainly one of them. I think about Dort here at the end of the season. Their numbers are better defensively than Northwestern, which is crazy to think about.
Exactly.
But, it's just one of those things where you got to bring it. And I don't know if it's necessarily Drew's fault necessarily, but Northwestern played some really good defense on him, doubling him and at times basically daring Zach to try and get him the football.
That's a big part of it too, is your number. Once your number is known, especially you get into the back half of the season, and Morningside's schedule is backloaded. I feel like that's an objective statement. It is backloaded, and it's going to present some more challenges along the way. So let's get to Northwestern then, and the defense. Which, if this were a Sesame Street episode, I'd say it was brought to you by the number 13. The defense holds Morningside to 13 points this year. It's a loss for Morningside, a win for Northwestern. Last year, they hold Morningside to 13 points, and Morningside still gets the win. By the way, those are the lowest point totals for Morningside since, guess when, 2013. So, I mean, you go back a long ways for that. And then for Northwestern's defense, they've already pitched 3 shutouts this season. So talk about the play of the Red Raiders on defense.
Yeah, well, piggybacking off that shutout comment, I made the joke to my color commentator. I said, as long as we score points, we should be able to win, because all 3 of Northwestern's wins had been shutouts. Those are some of the fun with numbers you can have. But Northwestern is so sound. It's one of those kind of defenses, probably similar to that Miami Dolphins defense of the 1972 perfect season. It's the no-name defense. There's not really one stellar guy that stands out on any given play, but gosh, all 11 of them are some of the best that you can pick from in the country. Coach Ryan gave a lot of credit to their defensive line when we talked to him during the pregame show, and I think that reigns true. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it felt like there were a lot more times yesterday than in previous games in which Zach was having to throw the ball quickly and have to get it out, while getting hit or on the run. He obviously scrambled a couple of times, and that's just not something Morningside's used to. That's something that only shows up a handful of times through the season, and it did yesterday. So props again to Northwestern's defensive line. I think that those were the guys that made it stick. And a shout out as well to Tristan Voss. He's that All-American defensive tackle they have. They moved him to the offensive line after the bus accident happened. He hadn't played offensive line the entirety of his collegiate career. He was playing two ways yesterday for Northwestern to beat the number 4 team in the country. Just great effort out of him. And Jacob Dragstra had a great day. They had a defensive end that was really solid as well. So props to that defensive line. That Zach got hit probably more times than he had in the last 3 or 4 games.
We'll talk about some of the numbers in this game a little bit later on the program. While I have some more time with Daniel Versteeg here, of course, Colby Duncan and Tanner Scouten, that was the big play. Overall, that winds up being the game winner when you come down to it. Morningside comes back. It's a touchdown. It's 14-13. And then Kyler Fritz with the blocked extra point. He had an interception on the day, too, with the blocked extra point. So tell me, from your perspective, what kind of a punch to the gut was that?
It was a massive punch to the gut. I mean, I can tell you, I was sitting up in the booth, obviously doing the game, and right next to some of the Morningside coaches, there was cheering. Lennox gets that big touchdown reception, caps off a really nice long drive, and you think, all right, Tommy's been pretty consistent this year. He's had a couple of misses, but for the most part, I feel very confident that he can put this through, tie the game, and we'll see what happens in the final 8-9 minutes. But boy, Kyler got a great jump off the end. He told our local newspaper reporter, Ryan Timmerman out of the Sioux City Journal, he told him that in film, he noticed Morningside was doing some very similar things to time when they were snapping the football on their point after tries. And so he watched what they were doing. He said it was kind of like a flick of the wrist from Luke Paulson, who holds for Tommy. And as soon as he saw that flick of the wrist, he was going. And, I don't think he got touched on his way into the backfield there to make the block. And, props to him. And, that touchdown that Tanner scored from Colby Duncan, it's the two-headed monster that Northwestern poses with their quarterbacks. Year in and year out, it's unbelievable. They've managed to pick dual threat quarterbacks for the better part of a decade now. But Colby Duncan is such a good runner. He didn't necessarily get a chance to show that yesterday, but obviously Morningside did their homework and knew that he can run the football. So by the time he was scrambling out on that play, it had sucked a few linebackers in, and Tanner was wide open up the seam there around midfield. And I kind of saw it happening as he was rolling out and starting to grit my teeth and hope that maybe he'd just drop it or trip on the slippery turf or something. But he's too good of an athlete to do that. So, those were tough plays. I think Coach Ryan said it best in our post game. The game could really be boiled down to 3 plays. Obviously, the block PAT, the big touchdown, 70-yard reception, and then the pick 6. Those are 3 massive plays in any football game, but in a 14-13 game, they're even that much bigger.
All right. Well, Daniel, I appreciate your time on a Sunday night. I don't want to hold you too long here, and we have a lot of other games to go over as we wrap things up with you, though. Concordia next week. Did I mention that Morningside schedule is backloaded? I think we brought that already tonight. Concordia next week. Tell us about that, and tell us where people can listen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a battle for second place in the conference. Might be a playoff game, depending on how the resume shakes out the rest of the season. But, that's going to be a great game. We're going to be on at 12:30, 1 o'clock kick. Our broadcast is on the GPAC Network video stream. I'm sure you've utilized that service here the last few weeks. So we're on that. If you're in Northwest Iowa or generally somewhere near Sioux City, we're on 620 AM KMNS. And then if you want to listen on your smart device, we're also an iHeartRadio station, so you can find us on the iHeartRadio app. So we're on again at 12:30 pregame, 1 o'clock kick. That's a huge game, battle for second place. And yeah, to your point, the schedule is backloaded. Thankfully, the majority of our home games are in the final 4 games of the regular season, so we'll be able to get to enjoy some of those very competitive big games inside the confines of Elwood Olson Stadium.
Well, listen, I can't say how much I appreciate you being on, and it's a privilege to get to visit with you again. You're welcome back on the channel whenever. Hopefully get a chance to visit with you again in 2025.
Yep.
I'm sure that would make Dave and Jeff and a lot of other folks happy. Leo says thanks for being on tonight, too, there in the chat. So we appreciate that. Daniel Verseg, who is the voice of the Morningside Mustangs, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Joey. Thanks for all you do.
All right. I'm going to let him go ahead and go on and enjoy his Sunday night. Maybe not lick his wounds. I don't know about that. But definitely, he does a great job. Great voice. My goodness. It's a privilege. It's been a privilege all year long to get to visit with a lot of these radio guys from all around the country. And Daniel, I don't know if you still are in the green room, feel free. Go ahead and click on out of here, and I'll see you the next time. Shout out to Sean. Thanks for coming on tonight, and always happy to listen in there. Leo in the chat tonight. Matt, is it a good day or a great day to be a Comet? I think it's a great day to be a Comet. We'll talk about the Comets a little bit later on. And Robert says that he's not watching tonight, but because he's driving, and he's been watching Formula One race with his daughter. So cool. That's great, man. And walking 10 miles a day, that is absolutely something else. So anyway, thanks for listening tonight, Robert. I think we'll drop your name at least one time later on in the broadcast as well. Okay, let's get into all of these games really quickly. And I believe, and let me see if I can pull that back up there. Okay, curious. Let's see here. Where is that? Yeah, I don't know if that's there we go. It is on there. Curious, Joey's take on Thursday night's game. I actually do have a take on Thursday night's game. And it was an interesting watch. Of course, the only NAI game going on a Thursday night. So you have an interesting watch on that. So let's get into that really quickly, and then we'll hit the other 44. Grandview 34, Peru State 20. That means 10 consecutive wins for Grandview in this series. The only time Peru State won was way back in Grandview's first season, the inaugural campaign for the Vikings. And I would just say by this, I don't think you should be fooled by the final score, because Peru State was in this game and led 17-7 at one point, and there were just some things that did not go their direction. You get into the third quarter, you get a pick six at the hands of Casey Trudeau for Grandview, 48 yards, and this was as Grandview was starting to come back. Okay, it's a 17-7 lead at the half for Peru State. Things are looking good for the Bobcats. Can they hang on for another 30 minutes? Grandview to score. Not necessarily a problem, because still, I mean, Jackson Waring and company really haven't, shown a lot just yet. But this is the problem for Peru State right now. I would ask this question: will the real Peru State please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. Will the real Peru State please stand up? Because you've got a Peru State team that lost 10-9 to Panhandle State in the season opener, and then you get a couple of wins, including a victory over Baker, which is looking better by the day, and Baker is continuing to roll. Then you put up 64 against Central Methodist, and C.J. Dixon looks fantastic. The next week you lose by 40 to Benedictine. The next week you shut out Clark and win by 54, and then, of course, this matchup against Grandview on Thursday. And Dixon's the turnovers. We mentioned it in the preview last week. It's basically a two touchdown to one turnover ratio. And it was even worse on Thursday night. 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions that Dixon threw. And so that's an area that, Coach Akingay, his team clearly was ready for this game. They had a great game plan. But when turnovers kicked in after halftime, and I see Tool Envy in the chat says that, listen, let's go ahead and put that one up there, all right? So everybody needs to be able to see that. Little Birdie told me that Jackson Waring had to give one heck of a halftime speech that fired up the boys. If that's the case, he got the job done, and they were able to capitalize on turnovers too. That's kind of a big deal too. My overall take on this is Peru State is a very good team that is plagued by turnovers, and it's not ready to be tier one in the heart right now. Of course, there's Grandview, and then there, 2 or 3 other teams. You have to think Peru State is just below that. Picked second in the North Division this year, but it may be just a little bit. They're going to have to clean that up with the turnover side, but obviously a program that is good enough to have played with Grandview and possibly been in a position late to still win that ball game, but too much Vikings on that. Dalton Van Pelt, 8 carries for 83 yards. He didn't have a touchdown. Ethan Schultz had 2 of those, however, for Grandview. Casey Trudeau with the pick 6, and that play, and then the 52-yard run by Dalton Van Pelt right up the middle in the possession following that. Those were the 2 big plays on the night. So C.J. Dixon, 21 of 44, 164 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. And there you go. All right, let's move on into Saturday. Thanks to everyone for watching that. Tool Envy says they couldn't handle Grandview's defensive line. They did okay for a while, but ultimately, no. They could not for 60 minutes. And I think that's the key there. You have to play for 60 minutes. That's overall what's there. We start with Kaiser. Kaiser now 6-0, 35-14 over St. Thomas. Kaiser in 8 games with St. Thomas has never lost to the Bobcats. 517 yards of total offense, holding St. Thomas to just 190. And Kaiser in Sun Conference play. We talked about their conference. They're just the way they've been able to roll through conference play since they've had a program. Since being a member of the Sun Conference, 22-0 now, all time. Shea Spencer, he passed that 7,000-yard mark in career passing yards a couple of weeks ago. Now he's also the career leader in touchdown passes for the Seahawks. 27 of 39 passing, 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Jaden Miller had 24 carries for 118 yards. He had a pair of rushing touchdowns as well for St. Thomas. Keely Watson had 1 passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. Again, the Seahawks with the win, and the only team in the Sun Conference now that's 2-0, so clearly in the driver's seat, obviously, according to the coaches poll, number 2 team in the country, 6-0. Yeah, it's all Kaiser all the time until I think Kaiser decides otherwise for that. 55-0 all time now when scoring at least 30 points. There's a stat. That right there is a stat. All right, Ave Maria with a win over Thomas in that victory. Ave Maria now 2 wins on the season. Thomas now to 0-7 on the year. Florida Memorial, 49-21 over Warner. It was homecoming in Miami Gardens. It was homecoming in a lot of places throughout the country this week. The first drive was 8 plays, 54 yards, all of it Gerard Sims for Florida Memorial. That's right, 8 consecutive running plays, all Gerard Sims. He gets the touchdown to score. Freshman Tedrick Wilcox, a freshman from Atlanta, gets the start at quarterback, by the way. 11 of 18, 134 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, didn't throw a pick. Congratulations to him for getting the win in that first start. Sims, 20 carries, 205 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Southeastern knocks Weber International from the unbeaten ranks in conference play, 24-7. Southeastern looked good in the second half at Lake Wales. Curtis Kimmons, 9 carries, 53 yards on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown. To the Appalachian, where Pikeville is now 2-4. We've been talking about this week by week by week, and we will say it again. Once Pikeville got into conference play last season, they went on a tear. They are poised to go on another tear this year, and all the conference teams have to be looking out for them. They roll over Point 62-10. Point, the team that nearly kept Pikeville out of the playoffs last year. Homecoming in Pikeville, and Xavier Malone had a day. 25 of 31 passing. That's 80.6% completion rating right there for 415 yards. It's his 4th consecutive 400-yard passing game. 4 touchdowns, no picks, had a rushing touchdown as well. Malone had a fantastic performance. McWilliams, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown. And for the season now, he has 8 touchdowns, rushing and receiving combined. Jeff Flowers on defense, 7 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 of them sacks. He forced a fumble as well. Pikeville now 2-0 in the AAC, and watch that number just continue to rise. Again, the season, I believe, for Pikeville is going to come down to Kentucky Christian. Yes, Kentucky Christian in that penultimate game, and then Reinhardt in the season finale. Speaking of Reinhardt, 4-3 now, also 2-0 in Appalachian play. It was homecoming in Waleska. Why not? It was homecoming everywhere, it seems like. 35-12 over Bluefield. Reinhardt now 11-0 all-time over the Rams. The Eagles went up 28-0 in the first 19 minutes of the game. 12 different players for the Eagles carried the ball on Saturday, including Jamarian Walker, who had 8 carries for 41 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Terrell Sablon had 2 interceptions for the Eagles on the day as well. Union Commonwealth, 28, Rio Grande 0. Union Commonwealth scored a touchdown in each quarter and held Rio Grande to just 67 yards of total offense on the weekend. 61 passing yards, 6 rushing yards. Taji Jackson for the Bulldogs, 28 carries, 121 yards rushing, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Kentucky Christian, how about the Knights? 35-27 at D2 Central State. Kentucky Christian now 4-3 on the year. The first meeting between these two programs, the Knights got up 28-0 midway through the second quarter behind 4 Jackson Wasik touchdown passes. Wasik, 29-48 on the day, 408 passing yards, 5 touchdowns through 1 pick as well. Had 13 carries for 64 yards on the ground, too. Kentucky Christian's Jalen Briscoe, 7 catches, 134 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Faulkner is now 3-3 with a 36-35 overtime victory at Cumberland's. And for Faulkner, it's a big win. For Coach Brown, it's a big win, but for Faulkner as well. First win in Mid-South Conference play in 3 years. The Eagles got up 28-7 by the end of the third quarter, and Cumberland's after that, trailing 21 points, in the fourth quarter put together drives of 89 yards, and 93 yards, scoring with just 48 seconds left to seal the rally and tied at 28, forcing overtime. But in overtime, Cumberland's got up first, got the touchdown. A Drew Gregg pass, by the way, one of 5 touchdown passes for Drew Gregg on the day. He gets the touchdown pass. It's 35-28, but Faulkner wasn't done. Deuce Marshall with a quarterback draw, 13 yards up the middle. They're trailing 35-34, and guess what? They go for 2. The pass from Deuce Marshall, as he rolls out to his right, throws back over his body to the left, in for the score, 2 points, and Faulkner gets the win on the road in Cumberland's. Deuce Marshall, 6 of 17 passing for 106 passing yards, 1 touchdown, didn't throw an interception, but he got things done on the ground. 23 carries, 154 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, including that overtime touchdown run and the 2-point conversion. He was responsible for 5 touchdowns on the day. Not to be left out in this, we've talked about Drew Gregg all season long for Cumberland's. We're going to talk about him here too. In the losing effort, 19 of 31 passing, 312 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks for Gregg. So between Marshall and Gregg, 10 touchdowns they were responsible for in an absolute thriller of a game at Cumberland's. But the Eagles come away with their first Mid-South Conference win in 3 years. To Georgetown. Guess what? It was homecoming in Georgetown, and the Tigers get another win, 34-13 over Cumberland. Georgetown's won 10 straight in this series now. Cumberland total offense, 356 to Georgetown, just 246. But, and there's a big but here, Georgetown had 3 defensive scores. And that's going to make the difference. Doesn't matter if you put up the numbers on offensive or not, if your defense is getting it done. 21 points of the 34 for Georgetown put together by the defense. Clayton Melcher had 13 tackles to lead the team. Tyler Snell had 9 tackles, and he also had a fumble recovery for 8 yards in for the score, a little scoop and score there. And then Isaiah Willis Jackson. We talked about him earlier in the year. He started the second half with an 18-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown, then closed out the game with a 99-yard pick 6. He took it to the house, sealed the deal there for Georgetown. And I'll tell you, we've talked about what it means if someone gets 2 defensive touchdowns in a game. He's going to show up at the later part of the program in our top 5 performances. It's going to happen just every time. Reminded me, by the way, of that Xavier Brown touchdown. I don't know if you know, here in the Midwest Sportsnet household, we're big Tennessee Volunteers fan. 3rd Saturday in October did not go the way of the Vols, and a big part of that was Xavier Brown with that 99-yard pick 6 at the end of the half. Not the right play call. Anyway, let's go back to NAI because that's what we want to talk about here. Campbellsville is 6-0. And this was one of 2 battles of unbeaten teams on Saturday. The Tigers, our pick, by the way, here is we had our preview of the forum back in August with Corey and with Vince and with James. I picked Campbellsville to take the Mid-South, and they're putting themselves in a good position to do that right now. Tigers 34, Blue Raiders 31. Lindsey Wilson is now 6-1 on the season. The Battle of Highway 55 goes to Campbellsville, and it was the highest-ranked matchup at Campbellsville ever. Number 9 taking on number 7. Tied 7 apiece in the first quarter. Second quarter was the key. Campbellsville scored and then held Lindsey Wilson to just a field goal inside the red zone. And that was key. 21-yard field goal. You get down there, you're going to have to convert. They did not. And then Campbellsville got another touchdown, a couple of Colin Freitas field goals to go back up by 10. And it was back and forth after that. But that second quarter margin was what held throughout the rest of the game. For Campbellsville, Trey Bass, 16 carries for 121 rushing yards, led the team in rushing. 5 catches for 78 yards receiving, led the team in receiving, and had 1 receiving touchdown as well. Jet Engel continues to lead this team well. 19 for 29, 247 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, did not throw a pick in the game. And how about the numbers for Colin Freitas? 4 for 4 on extra point attempts, needed all of those. 2 for 2 field goals, needed all of those. He had 10 points on the day. Freitas with the big afternoon for Campbellsville. Lindsey Wilson led by Tate Rice, 21 of 41 passing, 327 passing yards, threw 3 touchdowns, but also found people in other colored jerseys twice. 2 interceptions. That's going to make a big difference in a game like this. So the Tigers, the Fighting Tigers, are 6-0 and in the driver's seat along with Georgetown in the Mid-South right now. Big matchup coming up a little bit later on. Indiana Wesleyan, 71. Madonna, 21. Wildcats are 5-0 all-time in this series. Indiana Wesleyan started with the safety, and then after that, it was just quite a run for the offense. 582 yards of total offense, 446 of it passing. Indiana Wesleyan also took care of business on defense, forced 5 turnovers, and the Wildcats' offensive line still hasn't given up a sack this season. Arjun Lothi, 17 for 24 passing, 355 yards, but wait, there's more. 7 touchdown passes, an Indiana Wesleyan record. Threw a pick, too. Why are you going to do that? Arjun, don't throw that interception. Isaac Smith, one of 2 players with 3 receiving touchdowns. Smith had 8 catches for 178 yards receiving, and those 3 touchdown passes. And Simon Vinson, the tight end, 5 catches, 3 of them touchdown passes for 124 yards receiving. By the way, the receiving yards and the 3 touchdowns, both tied in records for Indiana Wesleyan. And here we are at the 32-minute mark before the first cough drop of the night. There we go. Possibly a drink of water as well. Indiana Wesleyan 5-2 on the year. Olivet Nazarene 6-1 now after a 53-7 win over Judson. It was homecoming in Bourbonnais because, of course, it was homecoming in Bourbonnais. Total offense for Olivet Nazarene. This is some balanced attack right here. 277 yards passing, 283 yards rushing, 560 yards of total offense overall. Christian Dureed now has 15 touchdowns thrown to just 1 interception thrown on the season. 4 touchdowns and no picks on Saturday, 11 for 17 passing, 204 yards, and carried the ball 5 times for 40 yards. Blake Lamb, 6 catches. He crossed the century mark at 101 receiving yards, had a pair of touchdowns thrown to him as well. Siena Heights now 3-3 on the year. Right at 500 are the Saints in the farewell tour, 37-28 over Lawrence Tech. And the Saints now go off into the sunset, having never lost to Lawrence Tech, 7-0 all time. Braylon Himmeline, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown as well for the quarterback. And Jalen Flowers had 13 carries for 116 yards on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown. For Lawrence Tech, Ryan Schuster continues to play well this season. 24 of 35 passing, 319 passing yards, 3 touchdowns thrown, and he rushed for 1 as well. Taylor, 42, Defiance, 10. Ethan Albert had 10 carries for 92 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns for the Trojans. It was Marion, 49, St. Francis of Indiana, nothing. Not what we expected in the Franciscan Bowl, but here we are. And we talked about this on Wednesday last week because that's when our midweek show was. It'll be on Thursday night again this week. there's a possible playoff spot on the line here. If you look at the way that Olivet Nazarene's playing in the West, the Midwest there in the Mid-States, the winner of this game puts itself in a very good position to either beat Olivet Nazarene and take the Midwest automatic qualifier bid, or to be in a really good position for second place and get some looks for an at-large bid in that 20-team field of the football championship series. The loser at 2 losses now, it's going to be challenging because Olivet Nazarene remains on the docket for both the winner and the loser. This was the first Midwest game. So for Marion, the defense forced 5 turnovers, 4 picks, and a fumble recovery. Tristan Polk, 13 of 17 passing, better than 75% through the air, 235 passing yards, and a rushing touchdown. All 7 touchdowns, by the way, for the night were rushing touchdowns. Keegan LaBelle had 4 of them, 21 carries for 60 yards, and the Knights roll over the Cougars by 49. St. Xavier, 10. St. Francis of Illinois, 0. St. Xavier is now 26-2 all-time in this series. Cam Manny, by the way, the only touchdown scored was a pick 6 from 24 yards out for Cam Manny. William Penn to the heart now. 6-1, 48-14 over Missouri Baptist. William Penn coming off a bye, and then it was homecoming in Oskaloosa because, of course, it was homecoming in Oskaloosa. Destin Lawrence, 16 carries, 193 yards. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, and William Penn now at 6-1. Baker, after starting 0-3, has rattled off 3 straight wins. And in each game, Truman Julesgaard just gets better and better. By the way, this was a win over a Mid-American Nazarene team that was 5-1 coming in. 34-14 the score. It was Maple Leaf Festival time in Baldwin City. So a Maple Leaf weekend, Baker let the Pioneers travel from Olathe, that short trip down to Baldwin City, put 14 points on the board. Then they said that's enough. 34 unanswered after that, and held the ball for 38 minutes and 14 seconds. So really controlled the game from the second quarter on. Truman Julesgaard, 10 of 20 passing, 50%, just 147 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. So Julesgaard's season gets better and better. And with his improvement, it's improvement for the Wildcats as well. Dom Spears, the freshman transfer from Central Missouri, had 2 receptions for Baker. Both were touchdown catches. Benedictine, 6-1 now with a 52-7 win over Central Methodist. Jackson Dooley, 12 of 27, 175-yard passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 1 rushing touchdown as well. Xavier Ugorji, 13 carries for 138 yards passing. And let's see, here we go. Truman ran wild on Grandview. He did, but there were the interceptions and there were the miscues as well in that Grandview game. And so I think that the entirety of the game has cleaned up for Truman Julesgaard. And by the way, Tool Envy, I mean, I'm a Julesgaard fan. It's unabashed here. I want to see him do well. I'd like to see him do well. It's been to Baker's benefit that he has gotten better. He did have some carries against Grandview. And then Leo, the weather won in the Benedictine game. 3-hour lightning delay in that one. And yeah, I was seeing some chat on that. Hey, listen, if they're going to go ahead and be ahead by this much, go ahead and drop that running clock on there. I don't think they dropped the running clock. Did they drop the running clock? I don't know. Well, let's see. Well, he is wiggly. Got a little wiggle in him? Yeah, it's got a little wiggle in him. Definitely does that. Let's continue on through the heart here. St. Ambrose gets the win over Graceland because guess what? It was homecoming in Davenport. And I've talked about Alec Ponder and that his numbers seem to have not really gone to waste because they're 2-5, but he's had a great season. This time, it all comes together. Ponder, 21 of 35 passing, 302 passing yards, completed 60% of his passes, 5 touchdowns thrown, no picks on the day. Trey Jenkins, 28 carries, 95 rushing yards on the day. But his big play didn't come on the ground. It was Alec Ponder to Trey Jenkins, a 9-yard touchdown pass on 4th and 6 with 5 seconds left to cap off a 12-play drive in the fourth quarter. It put St. Ambrose up 37-36. It was the game winner. I know the final was 43-36, but as Graceland got the ball back, fumble recovery, taken in the end zone, a 6 points there that if the line was at 6.5, then St. Ambrose covered. Let's stop right there, by the way. And Tool Envy's brother, one of the Fighting Bees? How about that? All right, cool. You know what? We're going to pause right there. It'll give me a chance to breathe. And I will say I've been to St. Ambrose campus. One of my daughters cheered, and she was at national competition there. It's her senior year, actually. And Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet and daughter number 3 and I drove up to Davenport. Fantastic city. The Quad Cities there, absolutely fantastic. So I think that is incredibly cool. You know what? I'm going to save my betting line till we get to Bet the Barn segment just a little bit later on. But there we go. Played back in the late 80s, early 90s. Really? That's when I was in college, 89 to 93. Not obviously in Davenport, but that's pretty cool. I wonder if he's my age. I guess he'd probably have to be my age, right? Or pretty close to it. All right, let's continue on here. William Woods gets the win, 36-35. And you know what? It had to come down to a 2-point conversion. So how about this? William Woods, fourth quarter, trailed 35-19. Touchdown, 2-point conversion. They trail 35-27. They force a 3-and-out. And then Missouri Valley has a horrendous punt that goes the wrong direction. William Woods scored again. They took over with 3:55 left on their own 4-yard line. Drive 92 yards all the way down. And then Justin Sharkey, after the touchdown, 2-point conversion, another touchdown, Sharkey puts it in from 21 yards out. Going from one 4-yard line to the other in the last 3 minutes and 55 seconds of the game, and then connecting on the field goal as time runs out. What an amazing job for William Woods. Congratulations, Coach Camp, and to the Owls for getting win number 1 here in 2025. Just an amazing run. All right, Culver Stockton, 28, Clark, 21. Guess what? It was homecoming in Dubuque, and Culver Stockton spoiled it. Liam Thornton, 25 and 40 passing, 299 yards, threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown as well. Before we get into the G-Pack, let's stop and say the Owls had a surprise. Yeah, that is true. The Owls did have a surprise. They got a win. And again, props to Coach Camp. Definitely proud and happy for him and to get that win for the program. It's a good program. It really is. It's a very good program. So we hope things will go well. Have you had a chance to see them there? I don't know if you had a chance. Have you had a chance to see them, Tool? We'd love to see that if you have. While we're doing that, we'll take another break. Break not sponsored by anybody, though. There. And during this time, as we get into the final portion of our schedule here with the GPAC, the KCAC, the Sooner, and the Frontier conferences on the way, just want to remind everybody, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. The channel is growing, and it's growing. It really, the last 3 months have been some of the best months ever for Midwest Sportsnet, and I just can't say enough about not only the community, but the support that you all have given the channel, and I think it's just fantastic. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. We would love to have you be a part of it. Join the channel as well. That's always fun to be a part of that too. All right, and just be a part of the community. Glad you're here. Dort, 33. Mount Marty, 13. Dort 6-0. And right now, Dort's at the top of the GPAC, 5-0 in this series all time. Dort had 294 rushing yards and started Colton Cruz. Now, Cruz got some time in last week. And Cruz, the starter last year, he's given way to Noah Strickfaden, who's been the starter all year long. But he played the complete game on Saturday, 5 for 15 passes, 63 yards through the air. He also had 12 carries for 46 yards. It's a ground game that made the difference, and Cruz had 3 rushing touchdowns. Thomas Fritz also had 9 carries for 120 yards, and he had 1 rushing touchdown as well. Rugby Riken, the dual sports star, unfortunately, 2 passing touchdowns, but 3 interceptions on the day. So Mount Marty not getting everything they needed from Riken on that. we talked with Daniel Versteeg earlier, so let's look through some of those numbers from Morningside and Northwestern as the Red Raiders go to 4-3 now on the year. 14-13 over Morningside. Each team scored in the first quarter. There was no score in the third or the second quarter. Then Jordan Carter gets a big pick six, a 53-yard pick six. Lennox Brown follows up with a 1-yard touchdown run, and that was in the first quarter. Then after that, Northwestern had Colby Duncan to Tanner Scouten. Yes, I know it's SCH, but it's pronounced Scouten for a 73-yard touchdown pass. These two were the headliners last week. They're the heroes this week. Chevalier to Brown, 10-yard touchdown pass with 4:41 remaining, and then the block point after attempt by Kyler Fritz. And Daniel talked about it there at the opening of the program. He saw something in the film, and he went for it. He gets the block, and he's the hero in this one. Fritz, by the way, had 8 tackles on the day, an interception, and a pass breakup, too. And, of course, the big-time blocked point after. Colby Duncan, 19-23 passing, 243 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Tanner Scouten, 4 catches for 107 yards receiving, including a 73-yard touchdown. Zach Chevalier, 22 of 41 passing, 219 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. He'd gone 3 weeks without an interception thrown and then threw 3 on Saturday. And, of course, again, Northwestern's defense and David seemed to bottle up Drew. 6 catches, 61 yards. Not a bad afternoon, but they kept him out of the end zone for the first time in 9 games. So a tough loss for Morningside. Big matchup next week against Concordia, and the Bulldogs got the win. They're 5-1 now, 32-29 at Hastings. Concordia has a road win streak of 10 consecutive wins. Up 26-14 heading into the fourth quarter. Hastings blocks a punt, and then Wyatt Ryan recovers for the touchdown. And after that, they got a touchdown. Then the Wyatt Ryan recovery, they took a 29-26 lead. Concordia on the final drive, 11 plays, 75 yards. Gideon Stark to Adam Van Cleve from 26 yards out to go ahead, and that was a game-winning score. Ryan, by the way, you may remember that name. Wyatt Ryan had the interception and wound up being the game-winning score, 10-9, as they defeated Northwestern a couple of weeks ago. Hastings is now 3-4 on the season, but it's a tough Broncos program, and that's going to be a tough one for anyone throughout the remainder of the year. Don't be fooled by that 3-4 record. Concordia, though, 5-1 right now. Morningside, Concordia next week. Midland at home over Briar Cliff, and they get the shutout in front of the home crowd there. Midland has won 6 straight in this series. It was 49-0 Midland over Briar Cliff. A pair of pick sixes, 2 different players, though. Brandon Lance from 35 yards out. Carter Lightwine from 34 yards out in this one. Brody Johnson had only 4 touchdowns thrown in this one. He had 7 last week in the game, so only in this one. All right, KCAC. The 2 best winning percentages for the program all time in the KCAC are Evangel at 54.7% coming into this game and Ottawa at 57.4% coming into this game. It was a tight contest. It was played today. Weather kept it from being played on Saturday, so they play it in Nixa this afternoon, and Evangel with a 28-23 win. And with this win, Coach Chuck Hepola now tied at the top of the all-time wins list for Evangel football coaches with Keith Bearfield. Congratulations to him. Reed Potts, also a Nixa product, by the way, 17-26 passing, 177 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Eric Williams had 14 carries for 70 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. Cooper Parsons for Ottawa, I almost said Washita there. That's D2. Cooper Parsons, you have to love the efficiency in this one, by the way. He had 2 carries for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's all he needed to do. Bring him in there, give him the ball from 1 yard out. That's how you take care of business. Props to Cooper Parsons on that, unfortunately, in a losing effort for the Braves. Kansas Wesleyan, 42-21, doubles up St. Mary. Kansas Wesleyan has won 8 straight in this series. St. Mary went up 14-7 at the end of the first quarter, and then Kansas Wesleyan scored 35 straight. Not 35 unanswered, but 35 straight. Henry Ostad, 24 of 36 passing, 303 yards through the air, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown for Ostad. And it's nice to see for Coyotes fans, nice to see his numbers going back up. DeHeaven Domina, how about this? 18 carries, 90 yards, and he had 3 rushing touchdowns. For St. Mary, Michael Gazana continues to roll. The receiver had 8 catches, 118 yards receiving, 2 receiving touchdowns. And Leo's right. Weather impacted several games in Kansas and Missouri. Oh, it impacted games into Oklahoma, too. I can attest to that. I was considering going to the Southeastern game, the Savage Storm, obviously the appropriately named Savage Storm, playing at home on Saturday against Northwestern Oklahoma, and weather. I actually drove to the stadium. I live about a mile and a quarter from the stadium. So I drive to the stadium thinking I'm going to get there, get some video, just enjoy an afternoon, cheer a little bit, because I don't get to cheer all the time. I'm neutral. It's just part of broadcasting for 25 years, and going to cheer for the Savage Storm. And I got there, and the field was empty. I didn't know. I looked online really quickly. The game starting at 4 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock. Well, there were other things to do at that point in time, so I didn't get to watch. But, yeah, it affected games. Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Affected a few games in Arkansas as well. Hopefully that's out of the way for a long time. I will say this also in weather. Man, it's finally cool in southeastern Oklahoma. Now, I know it's supposed to get warm again tomorrow, but then it's supposed to feel like fall? Question mark this week? I don't know. All right, here's the other battle of unbeatens. Friends, 56. McPherson, 62. 81st meeting in this series goes to the Falcons. We went over this a lot on Wednesday night. And turnovers made a difference. 2 interceptions, both pick sixes, including a momentum-changing Joshua Flash 44-yard interception taken to the house at the half. That made a difference in this game. McPherson was up 21-7, and then an interception made the score 28-24 as Friends got 3 straight scores right before the half. Kavonte Baker, 20 carries for 92 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Darian Sykes, 12 carries, 160 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And Friends won the turnover battle 3-1. By the way, if you were in the Bet the Barn there, the line was over-under turnovers at 4.5, and everybody but me went with the under, which means everybody but me was right. But there were 4 turnovers. I mean, it wasn't a bad number on that line. 4.5? Yeah. For McPherson, Ryan Markarian, 23 of 43 passing, 406 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. He also threw those 2 interceptions that were both taken in for scores. Horace Bradshaw, 6 catches for 163 yards receiving and 1 receiving touchdown. Southwestern, 74-20 over Sterling. Southwestern's won 6 straight in the series. The Mound Builders have scored 216 points in the last 3 games combined. 74 on Saturday. Jamie Odom, 20 of 30 passing, 279 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. I say that because he got bumped out of the top 5 performances by that Isaiah Willis Jackson performance, but what a great performance for Jamie Odom. Now, 25 passing touchdowns on the season, 8 rushing touchdowns for Odom. And by the way, of those 25 passing touchdowns, 13 have been in the last 3 weeks. Avila gets its first win of the season. Excuse me. The Eagles, 27-26 over Bethany. And guess what? They spoiled homecoming in Lindsborg. Avila is now 10-1 in the series. The first score was a Cordell Holly 25-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown, and then Avila was on the way. Quentin Curtis, 17 carries for 97 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. And Bethany also had a pair of rushing touchdowns from Josiah Hardrick in the game. Tabor moves to 3-4 on the year with a 36-7 win because it was homecoming in Hillsboro, and they defeated Bethel in this one. Ahmad Bailey with 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. Cameron Collier with a rushing touchdown as well. And for Bethel, Jarek Woodley had 7 tackles on the day, 3 tackles for loss, 2 of them sacks, and forced a fumble. Not quite enough for the Threshers, though, to get the victory or to get the win on the road. Let's go to the Sooner Athletic Conference now. Mary Hardin Baylor, 28. Texas Wesleyan, 19. Mary Hardin Baylor, by the way, has won the national championship in Division III 3 of the last 10 years. Now, they moved to just 3-3 on the season this year. I get it. But this is a quality program in Division III in Texas college football. taking on a quality program in Texas Wesleyan as well. But the Rams, in the first meeting between the two, come up just a bit short. Colt Francis, though, did his part. 36 of 56 passing for 366 yards, 2 touchdowns thrown. He also threw 2 picks in the game. Panhandle State now at 3-4 in the year with a 35-14 win over Arkansas Baptist. Chance Guadez had a passing touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns. For Panhandle State, it's a defensive performance there for the Aggies. When they get the win over Arkansas Baptist, it's a tough ask just about any week to take on the Aggies. Wayland Baptist, now this was a big victory for the Pioneers. 42-28 over Langston at Plainview. So they get the win at home, and a big win for Coach Hinojos. It's the 4th straight win overall, yes, but it's the first time in 14 games against Langston that Wayland Baptist got the win. Wow. 13-1 all time now, Langston. Each team scored in the first quarter. Each team scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. Each team scored a touchdown in the first quarter. Each team scored a touchdown in the second quarter. Each team scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. But Wayland Baptist in the fourth quarter had a 78-yard touchdown drive to take the lead. They forced Langston to turn it over on downs, and then an 81-yard touchdown drive to seal the deal. Kaylon Davis, 12 of 21 passing for the day, 195 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Kiamadre Horace, 15 carries, 170 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns, including the game-sealing touchdown. That last drive from Wayland Baptist, they get the ball back. They go 81 yards. It was Kiamadre Horace and Davis 3 straight times. So you get to pick up the win there. Brennan Davis, 13 tackles for Wayland Baptist. Isaiah Brooks, 12 tackles and 1 interception for the Pioneers as well. Big victory for Coach Hinojos in getting the first win in 14 tries over Langston. Shout out to the Pioneers on that one. Louisiana Christian 38, Nelson 6. And the Wildcats got off to a 35-0 lead by mid-third quarter. To the Frontier. And if you remember, if you've been watching the channel back into the summer, you know there was a team we were talking about that could make some noise in the Frontier Conference, one of those new Frontier Conference teams from the North Star. That team wasn't Dickinson State. We expected big things from Dickinson State. Haven't gotten everything we've expected from the Blue Hawks, by the way. That team was Dakota State. They're now 5-2, 40-7 victory over Valley City State. Largest margin of victory ever for a win for Dakota State over Valley City State. Preston Iverson, 19 carries, 94 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. I'm just saying that we talked about Dakota State. We think that the Spartans could make some noise. Another team that we didn't talk about as much, but we thought could make some noise was Mayville State. They were at home. They got a 21-17 win over MSU Northern in this one. The Comets are now 5-3. Now, let's hear from Matt and possibly Casey if he were to show up in this one. But Matt, it's a great day to be a Comet. There we go. We'll even put this. I haven't even read it yet, Matt, but we'll put it up there. Here we go. Shout out to Comer DeAnthony Thompson. To Comet, excuse me. Shout out to Comet. You need a spell check to correct that. Anyway, DeAnthony Thompson, 3 interceptions, a pick 6 just before the half. That was the game winner, and 2 in the fourth quarter to preserve the W. And you are exactly right. Big time there. I have it. DeAnthony Thompson, 75-yard interception for a touchdown. Proved to be the game winner in the second quarter as they went up 21-17. Matt, you just read my notes. Landon Olson, by the way, 11 carries for 78 yards and a rushing touchdown, too. And by the way, here's how big that interception for a touchdown, that pick 6 right before the half proved to be. Here is the drive chart for Mayville State in the second half. Punt, downs, punt, and then an interception on a Hail Mary for MSU Northern. That ended the game. So the defense really needed those things to come alive, and that proved to be the game winner. Shout out to the Comets. It's always a great day to be a Comet. My goodness, yes. All right, how about another team in the Frontier Conference? It's coming along. Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain, the Battling Bears are 2-0 in the Frontier East right now with a 28-21 victory over Dickinson State. The Blue Hawks have now lost 5 consecutive games. But let's talk about the winners. Trent Novak, 34 of 48 passing, 438 yards, 4 touchdowns, threw a couple of picks as well. Eric Lyra, 13 catches, 216 receiving yards, 216 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns for the Battling Bears. Trey Smith had 2 interceptions on the day as well. And that wasn't all for Rocky Mountain. They picked off Marcus Sanders 4 times on the day. Sanders, 30 of 47 passing, 397 passing yards, 2 touchdowns thrown. It was the exact opposite of Novak, where Sanders threw 2 touchdowns and 4 picks. Novak threw 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. Between the two, 835 passing yards. Here's the other problem, and maybe this answers your question, Tool Envy. So let me put this one up here. What happened to the Blue Hawks? Not sure exactly, but I can tell you part of what happened to the Blue Hawks on Saturday. They were a part of a day in which they and the Battling Bears combined for 9 turnovers. If you're going to throw 4 interceptions in a game, and Sanders won the job at the start of the year. I know there have been some other quarterbacks that have seen some time there for Coach Stanton. But there's still some turnover problems, and that showed up big time on Saturday. In a 1-score game, if you're going to throw 4 interceptions, just two touchdowns, that doesn't bode well for your team. College of Idaho, 28-21, another 28-21 score as the Yotes got the big-time victory over the Bulldogs. This was in Caldwell. College of Idaho, the game-winning drive. These long drives, by the way, at the end of the games. Have you been noticing that? I mean, there have been some really clutch drives, including this one for College of Idaho. 11 plays, 91 yards, took 7 minutes, 3 seconds off the clock in the fourth quarter. The game-winning drive, the touchdown scored, and College of Idaho now 4-2 on the season. UMW is 4-3. Michael Palandri on the day, 17 of 34 passing, 183 yards. Very un-Michael Palandri of him, 1 touchdown. He was picked off twice. For College of Idaho, Caden Young, 11 of 19 passing, 133 passing yards, threw a touchdown and a pick as well. Riley Byington had 22 carries for 92 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns for the Yotes as they get the win. Carroll, we mentioned, had a favorable matchup over Simpson. Caden Hewitt, 23 of 25 passing. Let me stop right there and say he threw and completed 92% of his passes on Saturday. And he did it to the tune of 312 yards. It's tough sometimes in practice to complete 23 of 25 passes against air. And Hewitt did it against the Simpson defense. Carroll has scored now 96 points to no points for Simpson in the 2 games against the Red Hawks. Hewitt had 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Let me go back to the fact that he threw and completed 92% of his passes. That is just an unreal number. Lincoln Holmes caught 6 of those passes, 117 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns receiving for him. Chris Akulshin, 7 catches, 99 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. And, you know, there are a lot of cool names in athletics. I have to agree. Yotes may be one of the coolest nicknames that's out there. There's a high school in Arkansas, and maybe for another show we could get into high school mascots, but I will drop this one in really quickly. Dardanelle, which is just outside Russellville, home of Arkansas Tech. Dardanelle, they're the Sand Lizards. That's just a cool one. All right, let's go back to the chat here. Some injury bugs for the Hawks, but some of the rest of the old North Star teams are getting better, and I agree with you on both counts. Sanders went out. He had dealt with the injury himself. He's back playing. But, yeah, that's been a part of the issue for Dickinson State. But I think you have to give a lot of credit to Coach Anderson and the Trojans and to Coach Larson and the Comets for just improving and making some gains. And I think there were some people, and rightfully so, who might have had trepidation for the North Star teams coming in the Frontier because the Frontier has always been such a good conference for football. And what are they going to do? I think that the North Star teams have really been holding their own right now at this point in time. Now, I realize we're still This is year one, and we're just 2/3 of the way through the season. And by the way, on top of that, a lot of the North Star team, well, they all are. They're all in one division. I mean, so the crossovers, there haven't been that much of them yet. That's there. All right. Okay. The Bloodhounds. Like that one, too. I was a Comet. So there we go. It's a great day to be a Comet. I like the Bloodhounds. That's a fun one. We should do that. Let's make a note on that, chat. There needs to be an episode where we just talk about some high school mascots and go from there. But we're not done yet with the Frontier Conference. 2 more games, including one out-of-conference game. Eastern Oregon gets the win, 21-7 at Southern Oregon. Talk about injuries. Southern Oregon has dealt with injuries in this one. But for Eastern Oregon, Elia Karisimasi, 9 of 15 passing, 169 passing yards, threw 1 touchdown, and rushed for 2 more. And the defense for the Mountaineers, 10 tackles for loss, 6 of them sacks, forced 4 fumbles and 2 interceptions. That's going to go a long way for a win. For the Mountaineers, Nehemiah Madrano had 13 tackles to lead the way for Eastern Oregon. And finally, an out-of-conference matchup in the state of Arizona. OUAZ goes to 6-0 on the year, 38-14 with the win over Arizona Christian. Jalen McGee, 34 carries, 200 rushing yards even, got 2 big bills exactly, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And that takes us through 45 games. And yes, we did cross the hour mark, but we're not done yet here on college football this week because we have a couple more things to talk about for week 8. How about this? Let us go now to I left my name up there all that time. You guys know who I am. You don't need that. Let's go to our top 5 performances. Let's hit the graphic. Caden Hewitt was not up there. Jamie Odom was not up there. We wanted to put some different names up there, and this is what we are going with. Top 5 performances for the week. And we get things started with the defensive performance of Isaiah Willis Jackson. He started the second half in the matchup with Cumberland with an 18-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown and closed out the game with a 99-yard pick six. If you're going to score twice on defense, we're going to put you in our top 5 performances. Faulkner, led by Deuce Marshall, 5 touchdowns responsible for, including the game-winning touchdown and the game-winning 2-point conversion pass to the end zone. Deuce Marshall, 106 passing yards, 154 rushing yards, 260 yards of total offense, but 5 touchdowns on the day. And by the way, Drew Gregg also had 5 touchdowns in that game and no picks. So we have to give a little love to him. He just doesn't get his name on the graphic in that one. Pikeville, Xavier Malone, 25 of 31 passing, 415 yards through the air, 80.6 completions, his 4th consecutive 400-yard passing game, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 1 rushing touchdown. Xavier Malone and the U-Pike Bears get the win, and they're 2-0 in AAC play. For Kentucky Christian, the Knights are 4-3 now, and things are starting to come together for Coach Jason Aubrey and the Knights. Jackson Wasick in his first year starting for Kentucky Christian, 29 of 48 passing, 408 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, did throw the pick, 5 touchdowns, 13 carries for 64 rushing yards as well, 472 yards of total offense that Wasick was responsible for, including 5 touchdowns. And they get the win over Division II Central State, 35-27. And finally, we get everybody on the board for Indiana Wesleyan because Arjun Lothi threw 7 touchdowns. It's an Indiana Wesleyan record, 355 passing yards, 17 of 24 passing on the day, just shy of 75% through the air. Isaac Smith had 3 receiving touchdowns, 8 catches, 178 yards. Simon Vinson, the tight end, had 3 receiving touchdowns, a record for tight ends at Indiana Wesleyan, and 5 catches for 124 receiving yards, a record also for tight ends at Indiana Wesleyan. And finally, we go to the Bet the Barn segment. Why not? And Robert, if you're still listening, we have to say you got 3 out of 4 right. And Dave got 3 out of 4 right. And Leo got 3 out of 4 right. And Matt got 3 out of 4 right. And I did not get 3 out of 4 right. As a matter of fact, we just won't talk about my number, but it wasn't 3. It wasn't even 2. But Henchman 21, and if you're watching this on demand, Henchman 21, you got mentioned because you got all 4. You're the first person to get all 4 right in our Bet the Barn segment. You got all 4. So let's look at those segments really, really quickly. And how about this? Our first one was an over-under, a totals bet. Lindsey Wilson at Campbellsville, 63.5 points was the over-under. And here we go. In that one, Dave, Robert, and Henchman got it right. By the way, I will point out, it's not a bad line. I mean, seriously, it's not a bad line right there because 63.5 was the line. There were 65 points scored in the game. Not a bad line. How about this one? Bet the Barn. This was a prop bet. Will Mayville State have more than double the rushing yards of their opponent, which in this case was MSU Northern? Thought that they would need to get more than double the rushing yards to get the win. That proved not to be the case, and it also proved not to be the case for them to get more than double. As a matter of fact, they didn't even get 50% more than MSU Northern, only 48.3% more. So the under was what, or the less than, was what went in this one. Leo, Robert, Matt, and of course Henchman 21 picked the less than in that one. All right, moving on to the next one. 2 for the Friends and McPherson game. The Bet the Barn, the over-under, 51.5 points. We put that line because we really thought the defenses would show up in this game. The offenses did not disappoint in this game. The over-under was 51.5 points. There were 88 points scored in this game, and if you took the over, as that was my one I got right, everyone but Mike took the over in this one. Mike Brooks took the under in this one. Dave, Leo, Robert, Matt, Henchman, all with the over on that one. So there we go right there. And then the final one, and this is also a totals bet, 4.5 turnovers. I was the only one to take the over on that one. Everybody else, well, no, I take that back. Robert took the over on that one. That's what kept him from getting 4 on the day. Everyone else took the under, and it wasn't under. There were 4 turnovers, but just barely under. That number probably seemed big, but I didn't. I felt like it was a decent line, so that's what we put out there on that one. So there we go with our Bet the Barn segment for the day. While we're on this, I'm going to go back to third Saturday in October really quickly because we're huge Vols fans here. Tennessee Volunteers fans have been for 40 plus years. I have, and then Mrs. Midwest Sports married into it. And we have spent 3 of our anniversary weekends in Neyland Stadium. We just really enjoy it. That having been said, Tennessee lost. Third Saturday in October. It was tough. That pick 6 at the end of the half, Xavier Brown, it was a poor play. I was telling Jody that they're lining up to run. Surely they're going to throw. Everybody in the stadium knew they were going to throw. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the game, they're coming down. There was a clear touchdown at the end that was not called a touchdown. Okay? 37-20 is the score. 57 points on the board. They line up, try to get Tennessee one more opportunity to put the clock in. They wave it off. They don't allow them to get that final play. That was a touchdown. Now, we don't bet money here on this channel. We just enjoy the bragging rights and the community and the fun, Bet the Barn segment. But there were a lot of people out there, I'm sure, who bet on the over-under, which was 60 points. There were 57 on the board. That touchdown should have counted, and it should have made it an over at 63 points, at least overall. Maybe the extra point 64 doesn't matter. It goes over. I'm not saying that the officials were betting on that game. I'm just saying the optics were bad. So anyway, okay, I'm gonna put that one up there because that one is a cool one. Tool Envy. We may leave that one up there to close out with. Good at the lines. There we go. All right. Shout out, by the way, to Tool Envy. Dave, man, thank you for being a part of that. Tough loss on Saturday. Very tough game next Saturday as well. We're going to be following that. We'll talk about it on Thursday night because the midweek show is back to Thursday night this week. And for all of you all who watch it, man, you guys are so cool. Tool Envy, Dave, let's see here. Matt, thanks for being a part of the program tonight. Leo, thank you for being a part of the program tonight. Anyone else here that I didn't want to miss anybody? Let's see. Sean, thank you for stopping by. And also, I know Robert is listening, so he can't type in because he's driving right now. But Robert, thank you for watching tonight. And to everyone else, And as always, you're made it this far. We are just about to the 75-minute mark. Thank you so much for being a part of it. This channel is what it is because of you. You all are a great community. You're just wonderful people. God made you well. And I think it's really, really cool that I get to visit with you each and every week. And I'm not kidding. I'll go up. I'll talk to Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet. She's going to ask me about the program. How did it go? And I'll say, I got to talk to some of the coolest people in the world tonight. That is awesome. God made you very well. And I think that's cool. We do have a goal here on the channel. We're trying to get, we're trying to get to 5,000 subs here on the channel by the end of the year, which actually before my birthday, but my birthday is on January 11th in 2026. It's the big 5-5. So we're trying to get to 5,000 subs by the end of 2025. And honestly, I'll tell you a secret. It's not really a secret, but I wanted to know, what should I do? Where should we go with this? I prayed about it, and 5,000 was the number I came up with. I know it's I really feel 5,000 was the number not I came up with, but that I really feel like I got in prayer. So I know it's a lofty goal, and I know it's a stretchy goal, but we're growing, and it's getting closer all the time. And it's one of those things. It would take God. So that's what we're shooting for. So tell a friend, tell a family member, tell family members who are your friends, and tell friends they should be your. I don't know. Anyway, tell someone else about the channel. Let them know, because we have a lot of fun here, and we're getting more activity in the Bet the Barn segment. So. It's a lot of fun when a lot of people play. That's all right. I'm the only one watching the clock. Well, okay. Here do we have okay. Matt, if I'm the only one watching the clock, I'll say this. Yes, we're shooting for 5,000. So please help us get to 5,000 by the end of 2025. That is the goal. I have said that if you're watching the live show to this point, you're really, really cool. If you're watching the on demand and you're still watching at this point, you are a trooper, and I don't want to let that go by. Okay, we're getting some major car work done this week, Matt. I'm just letting you know we're getting some major car work done this week, and so we're getting some things fixed that need to be fixed for a while. At the moment, I haven't got a text yet from the twins, who are both in rehearsals tonight on campus at Southeastern, but I'm expecting that text here in a little bit. So I know that either me or Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet's going to have to go get them. So I watched the clock a little bit, but I want to make good use of your time. You guys are so cool that I just want to make good use of your time and all that. All right. Thursday night, week 9. Oh my goodness. There are some big time games, and not the least of which is the Morningside Concordia game. I think it's a big time matchup, and there's a lot on the line in that one. So possibly a playoff spot. We'll talk about all those games more. We'll try to get the Bet the Barn segments in, and we'll definitely do that. It'll be a lot of fun. Big weekend, week 9 on the way. That's really cool. All right. Final weekend in October too. Wow. Yeah, it's the final weekend in October. All right. That's it. I think that's all. Tool Envy, you know what? You're the best. You guys are the best. Dave, thank you. Matt, thank you. And I'll wrap it up. I can just keep talking for a lot longer, and we want to do cool things. High school mascots, that needs to be a segment. We'll do that. We'll do that post-playoff. Okay? We'll do that post-playoff. That should be a lot of fun. All right. God bless you all. Thursday night, 8 p.m. There are likely going to be other videos on the channel between now and then, so give them a watch and a like when you can. In the meantime, God bless you all, and have a very, very good week.